Yeah, it is another episode of the Autumn Windbags. RJ Clifford, Juan Soto. Let's have some fun today. Well, we don't know who's going to be the Raiders head coach next season. We do know who it's not going to be. Bill Belichick. I heard he likes him young. So that's why he's going back to college. So
He better never go to cell block one.
Right? So his girlfriend can go to the same sorority.
Don't hate on freaking Belichick for being a closer, bro.
You're assuming he closes?
Oh, he closed that chick.
Yeah. Was that? I can't tell if it's cats or sirens in the background.
It's sirens.
It's your house. Okay.
Oh yeah, it's totally sirens.
Similar sound. My buddy sent me a sweet line. He's like, "Yeah, well, Mac Brown was getting up there in age. They needed an injection of youth into that UNC program."
Mm-hmm.
So they got Belichick.
He get an injection.
I guess that's it takes him off the market for the Raiders. I don't know if that was ever like really a possibility, but with Brady and all that,
have a market at all, really, for the NFL.
I mean, I think this year, because there was a lot of surprising non-hires, right? Vrabel, Flores, Belichick.
Flores not so much. I mean, he was suing the owners in the NFL basically, and Vrabel was like a late fire.
Mm-hmm. So
I can see why he was a little bit more selective. But I mean, I don't know, man. I don't know that Belichick had a lot of interest other than the Falcons, really. And then once he, put his demands on the table, the Falcons were like, nah, we're all right.
I mean, that was one coaching cycle, though. I think.
Well, dude, the guy's like 80 years old, bro. How many more cycles does he have?
I mean, this one would have been this one, right? He went college with it. 3 years, 30 mil.
He's not getting younger, dude. It's not like he's going to be more appealing as he gets older.
Maybe through osmosis with his college chick. Hmm.
No,
that's how you bring it back. So you bring the whole that's called a callback. The whole conversation back.
Maybe if it was funny, you can call it comedy.
I'll call you Chode Muncher. Is that comedy?
Oh, no, not really.
No. Well, that's enough Belichick talk for this show. So Farva, we thought Aidan O'Connell, when he got mercilessly cheap shotted on Sunday. I mean, that was a good 3 steps that lineman took before he gave Farva a shove.
It was a whole second, like a whole legitimate entire second.
A whole one Mississippi 3 steps shove on a quarterback. If that were Patrick Mahomes, he would have been tarred and feathered. But because it was a Raiders quarterback in a 4th round, 2nd-year player, oh yeah, go ahead, push him down, whatever, hurt him, no big deal. It's not like he was just coming off of IR anyway. And he looked like he was hurt. Got the compression on the leg, got the card out. Apparently, he ain't that bad. Just a bone bruise. And he's not even officially declared out for Monday. Antonio Pierce asked how, what's the status? Is he going to play? And he said, we'll see how the week goes. O'Connell said, I can obviously walk and move around and just obviously doing some stuff in the water, but trying to get on the field and move around today, which I did. So just trying to progress and trusting the training staff to get me where I want to be. The AP writer that was there said he wasn't even limping when he was walking in and out of the facility.
That is not a good look for freaking Farva at all.
That he's not hurt?
No, how he reacted. First off, I don't know that anyone saw how he hurt himself and how he hurt himself that bad.
Mm-hmm.
Then to have like a freaking air cast put on your leg, and then he's like dejected with his head in his hands, and for him to be fine. Not a good look.
Well, I don't know. I mean, those bone bruises fucking hurt, man. It's like, how
it happens all the time in Muay Thai fights when they kick each other's shins together. They happen all the time, and they continue fighting.
You know how when you like stub your toe in the middle of the night, you like go down and you just like cry in pain, but you're
How many
fine
times have you
two
done that?
minutes
Put an air
later?
cast on your foot,
Well, it's not his call. Like you go down, you can't play. It's a quarterback. They're going to
bro.
take
Stop. Just stop. It's not a
stop.
good look.
Are you calling him a pussy because the
Yes,
trainer
it's
decided?
exactly what
Because the
I'm doing. I'm
trainer
calling him a
decided.
pussy. Did I
Because the
say he was a
trainer decided to
pussy?
put an air cast
Don't
on him.
start, RJ. Don't start that shit.
You
You love
opened the
doing that shit.
conversation.
No.
You're the one that said
You're
it was a
saying
bad look.
something. You're saying I'm saying something that I'm not saying. I'm
What are
saying
you
it's
saying?
not a good look for him. That's what
Why?
I'm saying.
Why? It wasn't his. It
I
wasn't his
already
call.
explained
Art.
why. You're not going to try to trap me into some bullshit that I didn't say. I didn't say what you're saying. I said
What are
it's
you
not a
saying?
good look.
Why?
I already outlined it.
You're making it sound like he's a pussy.
I already outlined it. If you want to take it that way, I'm not going to correct you.
You insinuated he's a
I didn't
pussy.
insinuate. I said directly.
You said Muay Thai guys do it to each other all the time.
They
Not
do.
a big deal. Okay. What
They
I'm
do.
saying is, it wasn't his call to get the air cast. It wasn't his call to get the cart. He goes down with a leg injury, and they're going to do.
It was not a good look for him.
I disagree. I don't think because now that's his call, and it's like it's like the example I'm giving. When you like stub your toe in the middle of the night, you go down in tears. You're just like, oh, it's the worst pain ever.
I don't know
And
if
you're fine. And you're fine 2 minutes later.
I think you might be confusing a couple of things with.
I've popped ACLs, MCLs, and it weirdly doesn't hurt that bad. It's weird. Like I haven't torn it. I haven't torn any of these limbs, but I've like popped. You've done combat sports as long as I have. You're gonna pop, sprain, mess up everything. And I remember one time I was fighting a knee bar on somebody, and I felt it pop. And I heard the pop, felt it. My opponent, my training partner, felt it. He's like, "Oh shit!" And I'm like, "Oh shit!"
We just freeze. Oh.
You both freak out. You're just like, "Oh fuck!" And I get up and I kind of like limp, and I sit down, and I like in 5 minutes later, I kind of go into shock, like a little bit. You get kind of like lightheaded, but it never really hurt. It was weird. It was one of like the worst injuries I had, but it was like the least painful. It was painful the following months, but like at that moment, it didn't hurt. It was weird. But then I'll go and like we'll kick shin to shin, and I'll go down like I just been shot by a sniper, and I feel like my leg's on fire. But then you're fine 2 minutes later. Mm-hmm. I feel like that's what happened with Farva. Is you get like a bone bruise, which is just the worst excruciating pain because it didn't hit a crucial ligament. It didn't hit like crucial like foundational elements.
I think you're using a lot of like buzzwords to make it seem a lot worse than it was. I couldn't even see where he hurt himself when he got pushed. Yeah, like the worst pain ever, like excruciating. I mean, I couldn't even tell how he hurt himself. It just looked like he got pushed. I'm not saying he's a pussy. I didn't say any of that. I'm saying it's not a good look when all of that went on because he was on the ground for a long time, a whole commercial break plus a little bit more till they carted him out, and to just be walking around fine. It's not a good look.
Well, I think it's great news that he's not hurt enough. It's not like hurt enough for it to be a big thing. It's all good news.
You're not understanding what I'm saying. Okay, that's fine.
Well, you're tiptoeing around it because you want to say something, but you're afraid to say it. Like you'd rather insinuate it than say it.
You're trying to goat me to say something that I'm not saying. I'm not going to do that.
I don't know what you're saying. You're saying it's not a good look. I asked you why, and you won't tell me.
It's not a good look to do all that and to be fine. It's not a good look.
Well, the cart and the air cast wasn't his call. So you're saying it's a bad look on the trainers?
I'm saying it's a bad look overall.
Okay. I think you're afraid to say what you're thinking, which is okay.
I think you're trying to get me to say something that I'm not saying so you can then shit talk me for saying that.
I just want to know what you're saying.
You know exactly what I'm saying. I've said it 10 times. If you don't want to take it, if you don't want to accept it, that's all I can do is say it. However you accept it is not under my control.
Okay. You're tougher than Farva.
Casey, this is bullshit that you're trying to put out there. And the sad part is there's listeners out there that believe your horse shit.
Well, they can see through. You're like you want to insinuate it without saying it. It's very transparent.
You're trying.
It's very transparent. You're trying to insinuate something, but you don't want to have the word attached to you.
RJ, I don't understand why you chose this path today. I said one simple thing. It's not a good look for him to look like he broke his leg, and then him to be walking like the next day. Like, fine. It's not a good look.
Well, like I said, it was like, you're like, well, he had the air cast, he had the cart. I'm like, well, that wasn't his call. So I don't know why.
He was also on the ground for a long time before that happened.
Yeah, probably hurt. And when it's a leg injury, you take all the precautions because you don't know if it's, a torn ACL, shattered kneecap, or best case scenario, whatever Farva got, bone bruise or something. You take those precautions with a starting NFL quarterback.
Is he though?
I mean, for the Raiders, Desmond Ridder might be a starting quarterback tomorrow on Monday. And that's the thing is like when we were like, oh man, when you have two quarterbacks, you have no quarterback. You're like, well, I'd rather have one good one than not two. But like, how many teams have their starting quarterback play all 17 games? Like not like all 68 quarters of an NFL season. I don't know what that number is, but I know it's
very
way
small.
less than half. Yeah, it's less than half. Like it's rare. It happens less often than we'd hope.
I mean, any team in the NFL would be lucky to have Farva as a quarterback, as long as he's not starting.
And now we got Desmond Ridder and Gus Bradley's son. We'll get to that later. But good news for Farva. Looks like it wasn't anywhere near as bad as expected. May actually play on Monday. Luckily, it's a long week. It of him kind of
2 long weeks in a row. That's not common.
Holiday season.
Yeah,
keep it in. Changing shit.
You get a short
the Chiefs had 3 games in 11 days.
Yeah, that's weird.
So because of that and the corresponding moves, they're not sure what his deal is. So they signed Carter Bradley off the practice squad, Zamir White on injured reserve, Jake Luton, can't even tell you his name, an Oregon State 6th rounder from Jacksonville. He's now onto the practice squad. And there's a lot of people saying like, oh yeah, well, we need a new quarterback anyway. The worse, the better. It's like, no, man. Like again, we're in consensus here. Like Aidan O'Connell, we want him to be on this team for the next 10 years. Backup, bridge quarterback, great team player. Hey, who knows? Maybe he gets better with a more consistent system. Crazier things have happened. I'd much rather have O'Connell get reps than Carter Bradley or Desmond Ridder.
I mean, at this point, we've seen a lot of Farva. And I mean, I'm not of the opinion that he's going to miraculously be something that he hasn't shown us he is. And we'll get into it a little bit further. But it's if you have to keep making excuses, like it's better to have somebody you don't have to make excuses for. If you have to make a ton of excuses, if you have to keep going into the excuse bag, all these injuries, all this, that. Okay, maybe he's not that great a head coach. Well, all these systems and all this and all. Well, maybe he's not that great of a quarterback. You have to make excuses. Maybe your chick is just a big old bitch. You have to keep making excuses for her. Like if you have to keep making excuses, if you have to keep trying to talk people into them seeing that they're better than what they think they are, maybe they're just who they are.
No, I think you and I are on the same page with O'Connell, but I think it's undeniably true that 4 different offensive coordinators in a season and a half is never great. I mean, look at Sam Darnold, right? Look at Baker Mayfield, where they went. They're just whatever.
They were also first-round talent.
Yeah, but they were written off, and they never succeeded until they're in just the right system and just the right place.
You're missing a big thing here. They have more talent than Aidan O'Connell does.
They are better.
Talent.
I'm not saying he's going to surpass those guys. I'm saying
but where he's going to be. Like, I mean, even Brock Purdy, I think is a really good quarterback, but when he got some guys missing from his team, he looked pretty ordinary. You know, you take away an all-pro receiver and an all-pro left tackle and an all-pro running back, and he has to do more. Not very good. Like, so
Yeah, you're making my point for me. It's like you don't know where the ceiling is of a guy under these circumstances. Like we could have Patrick Mahomes. We wouldn't know his ceiling when you have these many changes of offensive coordinator, right?
We would have a lot more wins, though.
We would, but we wouldn't know his ceiling, and that's all I'm saying. We don't know what the ceiling of Favre is. I think we're in the same agreement with Favre. We
no,
pretty much.
We're not. I think we are 80%. I don't think he's going to turn around and be this miraculously just be this great quarterback. He is who he is, and period. That's who he is.
I don't think he's going to be a great quarterback either. But
you keep saying, well, the million different strange things have happened. Like, no, dude. No.
We don't know his ceiling, period. And if you say you do, you're lying. I don't think it's that high. I think we agree where his ceiling is.
I think we have an idea of where it is, a good enough idea that we need to move on and get an actual starting quarterback with better traits and better physical tools. I think we're agreeing on that.
Would you say Favre has been a bad look last season and a half?
What's that?
Would you say Favre has been a bad look last season and a half?
He's been a bad look. Yeah. I mean, it's a bad look for a franchise if that's your starting quarterback.
Yeah.
And I think we agree. I don't think that he's a starting quarterback in the end. We have the worst quarterback situation talent-wise in the NFL, I think.
Well, with that said, who would you want to have the reps? Carter Bradley, Favre.
We haven't seen Carter Bradley.
Desmond Ridder.
We haven't seen Carter Bradley.
Yeah. But, I mean, we know he doesn't have first-round talent or fourth-round talent. He's undrafted.
Wrong. I mean, Aidan O'Connell goes out there and proves that he's a last pick of the fourth round talent type of guy. Mm. You know, Carter, we haven't seen anything of it. I'm not saying that we should start. I'm not saying he's going to be good even. I don't give a shit. Cut him and 10 guys that look just like him. I want more talented players. Sue me.
Yeah. I think the best guy for reps is Aidan O'Connell to close this out. But we'll see how his injury goes as the week progresses.
I'm just tired of hearing all these.
I think you're mad at other listeners that are saying Favre's the man, and you're projecting it on me.
An isolated thing, but the thing is, RJ, is you always leave that door open. Whenever you say, "Well, you know, we're in agreement. He's a backup quarterback, and you know, you love to have him on your team for 10 years, but you never know what he can be. You never know what he can be. You know, stranger things have happened. Like, dude, just stop. Just stop trying to ride the fence. You know what he is. I know what he is. If he ends up being more, I have no problem saying that I'm wrong. You don't want to say that you're wrong. You want to say, well, yeah, I said that, but I also said that, you know, stranger things have happened, and he could be really great. Just stop with it. Just stop.
I've already said I think him and Minshew would give us the same amount of wins. They're roughly the same. I've been very consistent with how I've talked about Aidan
and consistent with your caveat at the end.
It is a fact. We don't know Aidan O'Connell's ceiling. I don't think it's any higher than you do. Can you relax? I don't think it's any higher than you do. But it is a fact.
I am
don't
just
know the ceiling.
Pointing out that you love to keep a door open for yourself for the gotcha, I told you so afterwards. And I think that's pretty shady.
When have I ever done that?
You do it all the time. You're fence riding RJ.
When's the last time I was like, oh, I'm really committed to this, but I'll leave the door open to fence ride? When was the last time? I do it all the time. I do it all the time.
That was a big one. The one that really pissed me off was Josh McDaniels.
When did I commit to him being great or terrible? Until it was way late.
Here's what you did. You claimed that you were you claimed that you were more middle of the road than anybody, right? You said, Soto, you're pro JMD. You love the high, you're this. You hyped it up like that. And then Rory's against it. I'm more in the middle. As soon as it was clear that he was dog shit, you're like, you see, I told you so. I
never said I told you so. Never said I told you.
You didn't say those words.
Because I never even insinuated it. Once he proved he was dog shit, you're like, okay,
this is why I didn't want to give you an example, because it's very easy for you to say, no, you're wrong, you're lying. Okay, then I'm lying. So say right
Daniels,
now, Aidan O'Connell is a backup quarterback in the NFL. If he's your starting quarterback week 1 with no injuries, you don't have a shot.
We both said that last season, and we're both saying it now.
No caveat, right?
I don't know why this is a big deal for you.
No caveats? No, because you like to give that caveat. You like to leave that door open for yourself.
This isn't a door open. This is a fact. It is a fact. Whether it benefits you or some imaginary thing that you think it's benefiting me using your imagination, it is a fact that he's been under a terrible situation for a quarterback, and we don't know exactly where the ceiling is. We both think it's pretty clear where it is. Good backup quarterback, bridge quarterback. It's, I think with the evidence we have, I think it's a fair assessment, but it is an undeniable truth. We don't know his exact ceiling because he's been under terrible conditions for a young quarterback. Those are undeniable truths. And whether you think that changes an argument somewhere or another is irrelevant to what the facts are. That is a fact. Now I'm going to hitch because you want me to hitch my wagon to something. There's no like, I told you.
You just tried to do it earlier today.
I wanted you to clarify what you meant.
I was very clear.
You weren't. You insinuated heavily. Which is fine. We moved on.
Very direct. It's not a good look for Farva.
Well, then you said the leg brace and the cart. And like, well, that wasn't his call. So what do you mean? And you're like, well, I told you. I'm like, well, it wasn't. We moved on. So the owner meetings are huge for two reasons in the NFL. One, it's where all the moving and shaking of the league happens. And two, most fun for us, is the owners do interviews. It's not often that NFL owners really do interviews, unless you're Jerry Jones and a handful of others. Mark Davis isn't afraid of a microphone, but never really chases it. He spoke to multiple writers, held court. I've been going off of Sean Reed of the Athletics, but it's, he said basically the same thing to everybody. I'm going off of Sean Reed. He said a lot of Antonio Pierce stuff. He never got too detailed about a lot of things, but he did kind of solidify where we thought things were. And he did actually kind of under the radar without, I think, him knowing it, told us a couple things. So just on the season in general, this is Mark Davis. I'm very disappointed. Obviously, I want to see progress. There's no excuses. We have injuries and all those things, but your team has to figure out how to get around those issues. The bottom line is it comes down to me. And if there's going to be a finger pointed, it should be at me because, again, I'm the one who's hiring the people who make the decisions on the field, which sounds great. But he also contradicts himself a couple times in this interview. He continues. There's a misconception that I'm making a lot of decisions on the football field, but I continue to tell y'all that I don't. I delegate to the people who I hire. I give them goals, and then I get out of the way and let them try to do it and let the results speak for themselves. At this point, obviously, we're not happy. You have to go through the season, and then we'll reevaluate. Right now, I'm not in the position of evaluating anything going forward. So he's not going to be firing Antonio Pierce mid-season is what I'm hearing here. It's like we're going to let the season play out, and then we'll reevaluate going there. That's kind of what I'm hearing.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, but I think he is going to fire AP.
Well, here's a couple. Here's
the more he talks, and if you know like his track record, when he stops giving you that vote of confidence, then that's it.
Well, remember in October where he's like, "Well, he's young. He can."
Yeah, that's a vote of confidence. Like, hey, you know what? Let's let him play it out. Let him,
It's not so much what he's saying; it's what he's not saying. Right? Exactly. He didn't say that part. And then, what's this exact quote? I
like the whole. They were hired at different times. Like they were. Hired
yeah. I'll get to that. Yeah. There's that one, right? Let me get to this one though. He was asked about, Minshew's likely to be released. Aidan O'Connell proven not to be a starting quarterback, and there was a rumor that Davis had a mandate where like you have to draft a quarterback this draft class, right? Davis says, well, you'll have to talk to Tom Telesco, and of course, Tom Brady at some point will have something to say on that. You didn't mention anything about Antonio Pierce. Like, you have to talk to the GM. You'll have to talk to this 5% owner, Tom Brady, that's coming in. Maybe you'll talk to the secretary. You'll probably talk to a janitor. And we'll have you talk to Brock Bowers. Maybe we'll have you talk to a fortune teller. He made a list of a lot of names you have to talk to, and not the head coach. if you think your head coach is going to stick around, you're probably going to want his input on who you're going to draft at quarterback. And Mark Davis did not even mention his name. So it's the exemption by exemption. What he's not
a good look. Not a good look.
And remember how he's talking about like, oh, Mark Davis was all over the place. He started this off by saying it all starts with me, right? I hired everybody, point the finger at me. Then he says, well, I'm not really involved in the day-to-day. I don't really like get involved. And then he says,
I always think that was an extension of the same statement though.
But then he ends the interview with this. I always have input. I play devil's advocate because I just want people to think about it from all different angles, but I let them make the decision. At times I'm really happy about it, and there's times where I'm not. But I think it's the best way for me to go about doing the business. It's about bringing in the right people who can actually make those decisions. So do you not intervene? Do you intervene? Because when you're the guy who writes the checks.
I don't think he's saying he's intervening, though. Playing devil's advocate is just giving the person who does make the decision more things to think about before making the decision.
I think that's how he views it. But when you're the dude who writes the checks and someone's telling you, well, I think we can go in the direction of A. This is why I feel like A is very strong. I feel very strongly about A. And you're the billionaire owner who writes the checks. And you're like, well, what about B? Have you thought about B? Just think about B. I'm playing devil's advocate about B. It's like there's devil's advocate, and then you're the actual devil with the pitchfork.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if Mark Davis has got like the corporate leadership training to really have like a plan. You know what I mean?
I've had bosses like that before, and I never felt that way. I never felt like I had to do what he brought up, especially if it's a lot of, contrarian things where it's like, I'm going to present an alternative and it's pretty consistent that this person does that. I never felt that way.
With an organization, well, I don't know what companies you've worked for, but it's been abundantly clear that Mark Davis is surrounded by yes men, and it's an organization of guys that just kind of came up in a mom and pop shop. When you're surrounded by yes men, devil's advocating turns into, I'm going to do whatever you say because you write the checks and I want to keep my job, which has been the big problem of this organization for the last 2 decades, right? It's been mom, pa, you hire your buddy. The guy was parking cars. 20 years later, he's team president. And again, there's an element of that that's great, of hardworking dudes, blue-collar guys, rolled up their sleeves, busted their ass, know the organization inside and out. There's a lot of great contribution for people like that. An organization needs people like that. They also need Harvard MBAs as well. And we're getting a whole lot of one and not a whole lot of the other.
Yeah, Mark Davis's big mistake was trying to run the Raiders like his dad, and he's not his dad.
Yeah.
And he can say all he wants. Oh, I'm not my dad. I'm not this. I'm not that. He was this guy. He was that. I'm not that. But he's trying to do things the same way.
And like an NFL franchise is completely different than the one Al Davis took over in the 60s. Like it was a mom and pop organization back then. Now it's a multi-billion-dollar international corporation. Like the Raiders have a gross domestic product of small countries. Like it's not like, and even as Al Davis was smarter than Mark, Al Davis did know business better than Mark. He was more driven than Mark. He certainly knew football better than Mark. But even he couldn't run a modern NFL franchise the way he ran in the 60s.
It just wouldn't work. It wouldn't work.
Yeah, it's just completely different. It's running, like a gas station, Akron, Ohio in 1958 versus a giant truck stop with, solar operating panels and like Tesla chargers in 2024. Like you're like, oh, they're both gas stations. It's like, no, bro, like they're not. They're very, very different organizations now.
Well, look, he seems to be making a more concerted effort to get people in places underneath him that make decisions. So he's adding another layer, another corporate layer under him,
and even better, like it's not even exactly under him, right? Like people with ownership, like they can't get fired. Like Mark Davis still is, a majority owner, so he's still the boss. But it's different than just hiring a team president. Tom Brady has ownership. They got other billionaires with ownership. Like they have access. Like that's what we've been talking about, right? That's what we've been looking for is invested, smart people with international experience. And we're finally getting it. So it seems like Mark is becoming self-aware a little bit more so, and it's proven with these hires.
I think with the move to Vegas and his ability to like hang out with people that are extremely successful and kind of see what I think he has a little bit of imposter complex going on right now. Like he looks at all those guys. Dude, people are dropping like flies around here.
You got to move out of the hood, dog. It's ruining our podcast.
Never. So we get the best tacos. But he's not those guys. And I think he realizes that he's in over his head with a lot of these decisions and the way he has constructed the organization, like the flow chart of the organization. Jesus, another one? God damn. And it's just he probably came to a really, rude awakening that it needs to change. It needs to be more updated and more modern for what he wants to get done for the organization, not just the product on the field. I think there's maybe a lot of money left on the table that maybe he hasn't even thought of. So, it's a good sign, and eventually that these decisions will trickle onto the field with better leadership, better management, better organization. The people that work under other people, they tend to give their boss basically or the person above them what is expected of them. And if you expect a lot from the people that work underneath you, more than likely you're going to get that. And if they don't give it to you, it's going to be very apparent, and you can switch them out for someone who will. So a lot of this, like you said, a lot of this nepotism, a lot of this hanger on, yes man, good old boy type of thing. It's not gonna fly for too much longer, I don't think.
I think Mark Davis, not to get morbid with it, but I think he's starting to like come face to face with mortality a little bit, where
he doesn't look good, man.
Yeah, well, it's like his succession plan's kicking in. In the NFL, every year you have to give out a succession plan, so because they don't want a team, let's say a billionaire drops dead suddenly, and like his three sons are just like suing each other over ownership of the team. Like the NFL doesn't want that, so it's like, oh no, we need something set in stone. It needs to be updated every year. And Mark Davis doesn't have any kids, and that we know of, right? I mean, unless that Cirque du Soleil chick got knocked up by Mark Davis, and we don't know about it.
Those records are sealed.
Yeah. But now he's kind of like, okay, it's like, well, let's put this team in the hands of some really smart people, smarter than me. That
it makes sense. It's refreshing to see that he would have that level of awareness. Mm-hmm. It's not a bad thing. I wouldn't necessarily say that it's a bad thing, but it's definitely something that is pretty obvious. If you're paying attention, that although he has shown that he's a little bit more shrewd than people give him credit for, dig up Sheldon Adelson and ask him. But there's just a lot that he doesn't know.
So basically, to wrap up what Mark Davis said, disappointed. He swears he doesn't make football decisions, but he's the devil's advocate. Read into that how you will. He won't make a coaching decision until the end of the season. And every way he, I would say, inadvertently insinuated what he's going to do, sounds like AP's gone. And
yeah,
feels like AP's gone, and Telesco he wants to keep, but it's just a matter of like, is he going to be a neutered version of a GM because Tom Brady is just going to make all the decisions? That's how I read into it. Where it's like,
I read it too, and he's not going to be a day-to-day type of guy. He can't be. He can't be like an employee of the team. Brady can't.
Yeah.
So, there's definitely going to be directives. There's going to be kind of a meeting with a game plan and check-ins and stuff like that. I don't know if you want to call that a neutered version, because plenty of teams out there have a senior VP of football operations and a GM. So I don't see that being necessarily a bad thing. But it just seems to be more of a buffer in between Mark Davis and the GM, having like a team president style. He can't be the team president because he can't be employed by the team, but he can take on that role at an advisory level and just give the information to Mark. Like, hey, this is what we decided to do. This is why. And he's gonna be like, all right, cool. Go ahead and do it. Instead of like, what do you think? Because obviously going up to Mark Davis and saying, what do you think? He's going to say all kinds of weird shit probably. So you don't even know if you can trust what he's saying. So yeah, I mean, it makes sense, if you look at it from that perspective.
I still, I don't have like inside info, but I still firmly believe that Tom Brady will have as much power and control as he wants. And so even though he can't technically be vice president of football operations or team president or general manager in our title, he can just be like, well, we're doing this. And Mark Davis is going to say, okay, you guys implement that. And whether it's like you said, just here's some sweeping ideas, here's some general philosophies I want to see executed, or if it's straight up with our 7th round pick, we're getting the corner from LSU, right? Or these are exactly our directives. I think it's firmly up to Tom Brady. And obviously, and I think it comes down to if he improves the broadcaster or not. Like, he hasn't been, he had a pretty good game this last weekend, but he hasn't been great. He hasn't been anything.
He was fine. He wasn't anything special, out of control, but he was fine.
I just don't know if Tom Brady wants to do something where he's not the best at it. It's like, look, I can take how fucking cool would that be, dude? If you just have like a billionaire NFL owner that's like, let me sell you a chunk of this franchise for pennies and you get to run the show as much as you want. Like, for you and me, that would be bonerific. For Tom Brady, who just lives football, I can't think of anything better. Like, broadcasting's cool and fun, and it's big money, and you get to touch the game, and it's low stress. But to be able to massage a franchise, be able to treat it like a mold of clay and do what you want, especially when the coach is going to be gone, you might have the first overall pick. You get to have that kind of power over something. Football's my 3rd favorite sport, and that would be the coolest thing ever. Imagine being Tom Brady and you get to mold a franchise however the hell you want in Vegas with the highest ticket seats, ticket sales in football, and you got Brock Bowers and Jakobi Meyers. I don't know, man. It'd be really hard to resist if you're Tom Brady. It'd be really fucking hard to be like, nah, let me sit in this production meeting while you guys are installing the offense. It'd be tough.
I mean, I just it's also hard to walk away from, $360 million.
Yeah. How much do you think he has in the bank?
I don't know, man, but he's one of those guys that he left a lot of money on the table as a player.
And he's got a bunch of side businesses and other things he's got going. I still say Robert Kraft was paying him under the table just to keep him under the salary cap. Oh, he's such a good teammate. He took less than he needed to. I don't buy that for one fucking second. Kraft ain't no dummy. You don't wear that white collar and that baby blue tie if you don't have an attorney that knows how to cut some corners.
Bro, you know what I mean? But he might be a dummy. He got caught in that freaking rub and tug spot. That's an amateur hour, dude.
Well, they were filming it. When you need a handy, it's you're not using the right side of your brain. Using the balls side of your brain.
That's when you call somebody to come over. Come on, dude. He's got this freaking stack for that.
Jupiter, Florida. Imagine going to Jupiter, Florida, and you're like, oh yeah, there's sting operations in Jupiter, Florida.
Well, I thought it was Arizona, wasn't it?
I thought it was Jupiter, Florida.
I thought it was in Arizona. Hang on.
Same thing. Checking. Florida and Arizona, the same thing.
Checking.
Roger, checking. While you're checking, Adam Schefter has been absolutely like on a mission to say that Tom Brady's restrictions are super overstated with Fox versus what he can do. Now, I don't know if he's just like carrying water.
Oh, you're right.
for
It was
Brady.
the Orchids of Asia, Day Spot.
Yeah.
So sweet. The Orchids of Asia.
Yeah, there's no way that's a place to just like get the kinks out of your Lombard. You know, Orchids of
open?
Asia.
Oh shit, they're still
If it was still open, it should be a museum.
It's still open.
Do you want to go there and get jerked off by the same lady?
I want to wear exactly what he was wearing.
I want the same camera that filmed him to film me.
So sweet.
So ESPN chimed in on it's like the Raiders coaching search. They kind of is one of those things where like three dudes all chime in on certain things, and Fowler had a lot to say about the Raiders situation. Fowler said, sources I've talked to are torn on the Raiders. There's a feeling in some league circles the job could come open, in part because the team cut a shorter-term deal with Pierce, their once interim coach, and the Raiders need updates to several parts of their football operation. But Pierce inherited one of the league's worst quarterback situations and suffered a rash of injuries, so a one-and-done would be severe. The big thing here for me, it's a lot of like, well, could and that, and here's why it's good and here's why it's not. We talked about this a few months ago, but we hadn't brought it up since, and I think it bears repeating. The job could open up because the team cut a shorter-term deal with Pierce.
That's why Kingsbury didn't sign, because they were only signing everybody for 2 years.
That was King's, and that could be true. I know that was what Kingsbury wanted leaked. I wonder if that's the case. If he's just like, I think I'd much rather go somewhere else with a better quarterback, better chance to succeed. It could be very true. Like what he leaked out could be the case, or if he wanted something else.
Well, he got a 3-year deal with Washington. It checks out.
Yeah, a 3-year deal, and he got a quarterback, right? When he gets to look like a genius. But the other part is too, there's no way Pierce got anything more than pennies because Pierce had no negotiating leverage.
Yeah, he had no leverage whatsoever. No one else was giving him a job.
The other 31 NFL teams weren't going to hire Antonio Pierce. So this was a no-lose situation for Mark Davis. It's like, all right, 2-year deal. And if you suck, I'll bail. Probably not a lot of guaranteed money because Mark Davis is still paying John Gruden, still paying Josh McDaniels, and
have to that buyout has to be like negotiated to be pennies.
Yeah, did he have any? I bet you he had like no guaranteed money after year one type of thing.
Oh yeah, I wouldn't be surprised.
Take it or leave it, right? Take it. Like here's a number that's not insulting, right? Like you are an NFL head coach. You know, you took over a mess last season. You know, yeah, here's a couple mil for 1 year. Here's, more than you've ever made, ever.
Yeah,
even as a player, probably, right?
Bucks
What's the most he made per year as a player? Probably like that, right? That number, and you don't have to get your body destroyed. But that's the other big part of it, right? Is cutting, unlike the other 31 coaches in the league, cutting ties with Antonio Pierce is like flicking away a booger. You're not picking a scab. You're flicking away a booger. It's very easy. Fowler also continued, the buzz seems legitimate based on what I've heard around the league. Vrabel is considered a prime candidate to get to one of the 7 to 8 jobs will inevitably open. Some have pegged him for Las Vegas should the Raiders job come open. Brady's influence as a minority owner there could loom large for Vrabel or others with ties to the former quarterback. If the Bears are looking for a quarterback with experience, as some believe they ultimately will, Vrabel's ability to build a winning culture could be attractive. I fucking love the idea of Mike Vrabel coming in and cleaning house. We need a franchise shifter. We need a mover and shaker. Antonio Pierce, you and I both like the idea for all the reasons everyone else did. Like, oh man, number one in turnover margin, number one in penalties. Everyone played so hard for him. The team will run through brick walls. He's not going to be great on the sideline, but all the other stuff will make up for that as he learns.
Nope.
None of those things panned out. None of it did.
And he's not learning either. He's still making the same.
And he's not learning. It's like everything we hoped, and everything he did, opposite.
That's my big thing, man. I
Yeah, no, yeah,
understand.
that's been your number one thing.
I don't care if we win or lose. That's because look, other than that, we needed this season. We needed this like shit season. We needed it. The last few years when we won 6 games, 8 games, we had one of the oldest teams in the league, right? Now we have one of the youngest. This needed to happen. This season, this bad season needed to happen without losing any of your star players while adding some star players. And I think we're in a much better position than a lot of people are giving us credit for because we were able to like shed some of the age off of the roster, but find good young players while keeping all of your good, established players. And most of them. And it could be a quick turnaround, but these next few decisions, that's why they're so important. Who do you get to play quarterback? Who do you get to coach? Is it AP still or is it somebody else? Who's the coordinator going to be? How is it going to be structured? Who's going to make decisions? It's going to be Telesco. Is going to be a committee, like what? And a lot of these things need to be hammered out. The second the clock on week 18 goes to triple zeros, they got to start hammering all that out. That's normally what happens. They start hammering all that out, and that's why you have like the next day you get a lot of that's what the Black Monday, right? They call it the Monday after at the last Sunday of the season, and it's going to be huge because we're in a position, and I think we've talked about this before of what needs to happen when you move on from an established quarterback like we had in Derek Carr. What needs to happen, and Josh McDaniels just totally shit the bed on that and try to get a bunch of retreads to come in here and instead of just doing what he should have done and get a young quarterback and put him in a system and start building around him. He wanted to like do the Band-Aid thing again. Let's just roll it back with a different quarterback. It's like, well, there was some issues already. So this season needed to happen. So wins and losses for me for AP was not the biggest thing. Is how is he doing? How is he progressing as a head coach? And he's really not.
And I would take it. I'm with you 100%. And I would take it even one step further, like even beyond roster, just team culture, how are practices run? What's the mentality with everything? Like a complete cultural rebuild. Like these guys.
I like the culture of the team, though. I like the culture of the team. I think that it is something that we haven't talked about, but I've been kind of chewing on it for a little bit. The fact that nothing about Devontae leaked from any of his teammates, I think was huge. Because you see what kind of douchebag he is now, right? And how it's like all the stuff's coming out. And then you kind of starting to hear some stuff about how he was, like with that Sports Illustrated article about him shit talking, Carr 3 games into the season, the first season together, behind his back. But you never heard any of that. So I think the locker room is pretty solid. And the fact that they're still playing really hard and they're putting up, I think that's the leadership on the team is, although it's younger, it's still really strong. I think the culture is really good. I think if I can maybe like just do a line off of what you're saying is have the coaching staff match that. Right now, I don't think it does with the talent and with the consistency.
I think the locker room is tight, but what I'm talking about is bigger than that. Under Josh McDaniels, guys are like, we're getting run ragged. Like, this is just like, we're doing meetings for the sake of meetings. We're getting berated for hours and hours and hours. This is taking forever. Fast forward a season and a half forward, and you got guys saying, we need more discipline. We need to be held more accountable. We need to be more efficient with our time. And you're swinging wildly from one way to the other based on just like who happens to fill the coach's shoes for 2 seasons until they're fired. I'm talking about like a foundational shift in how things are done, where a coach comes in there and maybe he doesn't have GM powers, but he's got this ability to be like,
yeah, that's a tricky one with Vrabel. You just mentioned that. And I remember that's how he got ousted in Tennessee, is he wanted more say in personnel decisions, and they just said, fuck you, and they shit canned him.
So that's what I mean is you don't need GM powers to give the team a different culture, a different feel, an instead of just like, again, Antonio Pierce as interim coach, brand new guy, Raider way, always Raider guy. He wasn't going to shift anything. He didn't have the cachet to come in and be like, I know what I'm doing. I'm ready to take over. Let's start doing it this way. He did opposite. He's like, I have no clue what I'm doing. Let me hire 20 different assistants to show me how to do shit. And I'm still not going to listen. You know what I mean? He doesn't have the cachet to do that. He's a player's coach. That's basically like your team captain that was handed the clipboard, which it can work. Like that's not an impossible. That is in a bubble. That's something that could work, but not with a team with the Raiders that had 20 years of dog shit, of just 2 decades of losing terribly, bad culture, tons of coaches, no direction, mom pa organization on the front office. You need someone to come in there and say, I've done this before. I've got the hardware. I've got the strong personality. Here's a system, and we're all going to fall in line, and we're going to do it. That's pretty Vrabel-y from what we've heard.
Yeah. Those eggs were a lie, Steven. They give you no powers. They give you no nutrients.
What's that from? Let us know in the comments. You ready to do some What Windbags?
Sure, man. Why not?
Fuck it. Turco 7477. Thank you so much for being a member. RJ.
Yo, Turco.
Southeast Asia Sexcapade. Oof. Nice to see you back, buddy. Sun on the way.
Is that what her name was, Sun?
S-U-N? Sun's on the way. I'm going to tell my brother. So my brother Michael, great kid, smart guy, 2 degrees, makes good money, real salt of the earth dude. Never really found his way with the ladies. I'm going to tell him when I see him at Christmas. I'm like, bro, take 3 weeks off of work, go to Thailand. And it's not even what I'm not even saying what many of you think I'm saying, where he's just going to like run through hookers. I'm saying
he's not saying that. He's not saying that.
I'm not saying that. What I'm saying, the primary goal, just talk to people, talk to girls out there. When you're an American with American money, they are looking for something. And the Thai women, they are
assertive,
all about the man's in charge. They baby the hell out of you. They take care of you. It's like that is their job. That is their function. They're like Labradors. It's just like, I'm just here to make you. I'm happy when you're happy, right?
But they are very in tune with traditional roles. And they're aggressive in telling you that they like you. So
I'd tell this to any guy. Is you know what? I don't know if I'm gonna find somebody. I don't have the greatest game, or I don't. I'm kind of nervous. Go to Thailand.
Thailand. You just need that blue passport.
Blue passport. Just talk. Just talk. Have a good time. I don't want you to just like throw a net over the first one you see and take her home. I don't want you to go get a mail order bride. I'm just saying.
It's a good environment to be able to just.
If you're a 3 in California, you're a 9 in Thailand. Is what I'm saying.
Well, and also like, because I haven't had a lot of interaction with your brother Michael, but he's always been really nice, and he's always had like a lot of interesting conversation, right? I just think he needs to get all the swings. Like he needs to get the reps.
He needs reps, and he needs an icebreaker.
He needs to
get Americans as icebreaker.
He needs to get used to interacting with a female that is interested. Instead of just girls blowing them off or whatever. I don't know if they do or not, but just kind of having that confidence is huge to be able to talk to a girl.
Bryan
and a beard doesn't hurt.
Jack Bryan 4676. Hey Soto. Hey Juan Soto. Congrats on becoming a Met. Don't spend that $765 million all in one place. At the end of every baseball season, when Juan Soto's contract, like your name is always trending somewhere, like every night, like it just pops up all the time. Like, oh shit, what did he do? Oh no. It's the other Juan Soto. Have you ever tried to use that? You ever tried to be like try to get reservations at a 5-star restaurant? They're like, no, you can't. This is Juan Soto. I would like a table for 10 at 8:30. See what happens.
No, I haven't tried it because then you still have to pay for the meal. But
ESPN did this thing. It was like 15, 20 years ago of just random people with famous last name or famous names.
that.
Like there's a guy named called Steve Young that lives in San Francisco. And he like multiple times it happened. He would do that, or he'd call like, "This is Steve Young. I'd like a reservation." Be like, "Okay," and then he shows up, and they're like, "Fuck," but they let him do it. They're not gonna like, because he didn't lie, and they don't want to be assholes and be like, "Nope, you're not the famous one."
So I was watching I forgot what it was, but that singer Tyson was on a talk show, right, at the radio show or something like that. And he's like, I was in Vegas and I walked into this room, and I hear people, "Oh man, Tyson's here, man, Tyson's here." And then somebody runs into the room and is like, "Man, that's not Mike Tyson, that's just Tyson." So even if you're famous, you can still get.
You can always be overly fit. Yeah, you can always be like There's only like 2 famous Cliffords. There was the Clifford that was the coach of the Pelicans.
And there's a big red dog.
The big red dog. Sean Clifford that was quarterback for Penn State. Now he's Green Bay or he's floating around the league somewhere. Yeah, so like I don't like see you can never like I could be the most famous Clifford because there's this it's like the barrier to entry is so low. You could never be the most famous even Juan Soto because you're going against $750 million baseball player.
I'm not gonna tell anybody, but there's gonna be signs. I made a little bit of money. There'll be signs. Cat's gonna have a
gold cages for
solid gold freaking litter box or something. They only shit on diamonds.
Sam DeMan. Thank you so much for being a member. Is shedeur good enough to trade up to get him? We're probably going to win 2 more games, and he won't be there for us. I draft best available, then draft Aller in the second, or trade back and draft Aller later in the first. Also, I don't care if we win the last 4 games. AP's got to go. So the Giants have a much rougher schedule than us. There's a really good chance that we won't be number 1 just based on, we got Jacksonville. We'll have the Derek Carless Saints who are spiraling. And the Giants, off the top of my head, they have like Eagles, Ravens. Like the Giants have a brutal schedule, and
they ended with the Eagles.
Yeah, like, and we've got like not a whereas as bad as we are, there's no easy schedule, but we got some bad teams coming up. So there's a real possibility that we might be, it's possible we can be as high as 8th, like mathematic. Like it's not likely, but like the worst possible pick we could get is 8th if literally everything falls into place. But like 3rd or 4th is pretty realistic. At that point, we have some decisions to make. Soto.
Yeah. Is shedeur good enough to trade up to get him? If I don't know that realistically, I don't know that the gap between shedeur and what you have to give up to get him, and let's say drafting a Cam Ward. Of course, you want to get the best player that you feel is the best player at the position. I don't know that it's going to be that big of a difference in those 2 guys. If you decide to go a different route, because Shedeur Sanders, you draft Shedeur Sanders, he's gonna start for you day 1. He's really smart and he's really accurate with the football. He doesn't get fooled by defenses. He's been schooled really well. If you get like a Cam Ward, maybe he don't start right away. He's physically talented, but he makes a lot of terrible decisions. And you get Aller, maybe like Sam was saying, he's like a Josh Allen. Josh Allen didn't start till like week 12 or something like that, his rookie season. And there's going to be some growing pains with him because he's a wild horse, man. He's like Josh Allen. He's a big, strong-armed kid who needs to be taught how to play quarterback position, but he's got such great tools to work with that you don't want to pass that up. So, personally, I would probably go and get shedeur just because I think he's the best quarterback in this class. And that's what you want to do. And I've been preaching, just get the best player you can, get high-end traits. His mental makeup, man. I was listening to a podcast with Field Yates and Mel Kiper, and they were like, dude, this kid's mental makeup is like, if 1 is the best and 5 is the worst, like he's on 1 in his toughness, in his football IQ, and his ability to read defenses, knowing where to go with the football. Also his accuracy, they put it also out of 1. So to say that this guy doesn't have high-end traits is an out and out lie. It's an absolute falsehood that you're trying to tell yourself just because you don't want the Raiders to select this kid. He is an excellent processor of information. He knows the game. He knows defenses, and he's super accurate with the football. He doesn't have a cannon for an arm. That doesn't mean he has a weak arm. And he's not the fastest player out there. It doesn't mean he's slow. He's just not. He's not elite at the categories that we think quarterbacks should be. Like, oh, you got to have a strongest arm. You got to be really fast in today's game. No, not necessarily. So there is still a lot of I believe he's still in this as of today. I think he's still the best quarterback prospect in the draft, and I don't think it's that close just because of his accuracy and because of his mental makeup. Like, dude, when he got tackled low, right, and he almost broke his leg. You remember that play? Mm-hmm. He just popped right back up and freaking threw a dime the next play. Like that's mental toughness. And he's when he knows, like this last game, I forgot who they were playing against. The first half of the game, they were kind of screwing with him a little bit defensively, and he had a couple of bad throws. He figured it out by the middle of the second quarter. You can see him kind of figuring it out and knowing what to do with the football after that. So he's that smart. And I mean, yeah, man, it's tough for me to say because I don't think he's like. He would be 4th in last year's draft, right? Behind Drake May. I think it's pretty close, but he's still behind Drake May. And I don't know how much you want to trade to get up to that guy, but he's definitely the best that's available now.
Well, all this is going to be a moot point if the Giants like him and they're drafted ahead of us, right? Because everyone else likely is going to be open to trade because they already have their quarterback, right? So currently, right this second, the draft order.
Jacksonville, who else?
Carolina, New England.
Carolina, Bryce Young's doing really good. New England's got their guy.
Right now, it's 1 Raiders, 2 Giants, 3 Pats, 4 Panthers, 5 Jags, right? So if 3, 4, or 5 jump ahead of us, they're going to be open for business. They're not drafting a quarterback, and when you're that high up, so many quarterback needy teams. They're thinking, cha-ching, 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 we're cashing in, right? At that point, it's all a matter of who's willing to give up how much for the guy that they want. If the Giants are ahead of us, it all comes down to who do they want, and is it opposite of what we want? It's not going to matter.
Oh, they might take shedeur and trade him to us like what happened with Eli.
I mean, I think if they want shedeur, they take him and keep him. That's such a rare situation. I mean, it's possible, right? It's happened before, but in decades of the draft, it's extremely rare. Really, remember last season, everyone's like, Caleb Williams is going to want ownership of the team. He's going to want be the coach. He's going to demand all that. It's like, no, he was drafted and then went to training camp and then went to practice and then played like a normal draft pick, like what happens 99.999% of the time, right? Shedeur doesn't have anywhere near the leverage that Caleb did, and he didn't do it. So, sure, it's possible, but I think it's really just going to come down to if the Giants, who's going to be drafting first, Giants or Raiders, and it's probably going to be who's ever first is going to get who they want, who's ever second is going to get the other one. That's most likely what's going to happen. Again, things can get real wacky, right? The Jets could potentially get to number 1, right? Like there's other quarterback needy teams that could potentially do that. But it's probably gonna be the situation, guys. It's probably the situation. Whoever drafts first gets what they want. Whoever drafts second. Have you read anything? Has there been any leaks? I don't read anything Giants. Has they had anything about where they're leaning, Cam Ward or shedeur? Have you read anything like that?
No.
So I know there's obviously a lot of stories about Raiders being tied to shedeur. I wonder if there's anything like Giants love Cam or.
Well, I will
Let's have
say
to pay
this
attention now.
with the head coach, who was Josh Allen's offensive coordinator when they drafted him and kind of developed him. If you're looking at it from that perspective, Cam Ward is much closer physically, as far as what he brings to the table as traits wise, to Josh Allen. So he knows. Let's say you got a quarterback who has great physical tools but doesn't know how to read defenses that well, is not that accurate with the football. How do you bring him along? Well, the coach has already done it. He did it with Josh Allen, and now look where he is. He's like the best quarterback in the league. He scored 6 touchdowns or something like that the last game. So I can see that being like, hey, you know what? I've already worked with a quarterback with these physical tools and who needed to work on these specific areas. I know what to do. Let's grab this kid. I know I can make him a star.
Well, that's it for us. Monday night game. Got the Falcons on Monday. Always a pleasure doing a nice primetime game late in the season when it's already draft season for us, but why the hell not? At least we get Sunday to just enjoy football. You know what I mean? Just to sit down and just watch football for the sake of football. I'm in one of my fantasy football leagues. I have to win and get help in another league. So I'm hoping to go 2-0, get into the playoffs. That's what I'm focusing on Sunday. And then Monday was the one where we're miserable and watch our Raiders. But
Yay.
a lot to follow now. We'll do a post-game show on Sunday on Monday, as always. And until then, knock on wood if you're with me. Hey, you made it to the end of our video. Great job. I know you want more. Go ahead and click the next video. And if you're feeling crazy, go ahead and subscribe.